Another great question in response to my recap video of the UFO hearing in the House Oversight Committee yesterday in Congress. It's usually some version of why hasn't any other country in the world come out with this information, or why are these sightings only in the US? Why don't we hear about it happening in these other countries? So here we go. Part of the reason people understandably have this knee-jerk reaction is because our consumption of international news in the United States is effectively zero. So that's the baseline we're starting with. We don't consume the news about what's happening in other countries. So of course you haven't heard, but that's why I'm here. So let's dive into what are other countries saying about this issue. Our first stop is Brazil, which is a country that has a rich history of both civilian UFO sightings with the Colares case in Varginha, as well as government and military involvement, such as Operation Plate, which took place between 1978 and 1979. But on June 24th of 2022, last year, just about a year ago, they held a hearing in their Senate, a UAP hearing, where they brought together leading researchers and former government officials to both discuss the history of Brazil's involvement in this issue and looking forward in terms of what they need to do about it, both from a military government perspective and a transparency perspective. They also started requiring their Air Force to report any sightings of UFOs officially in August of 2010. Next up, Japan, who 3 years ago, in September of 2020, created a new rule set across their military for how to identify and track UFOs. And that was over a decade after the Chief Cabinet Secretary for Japan, Nobutaka Makimura, officially went public for the first time saying that Japan was detecting UFOs. Now let's take a little hop skip over to China, who in February had to warn locals about an upcoming shoot-down of a UFO that they were tracking. But that was much less dramatic than what happened on September 11th, 2010, where the 8th sighting in a 3-month period forced the shutdown of an airport in Inner Mongolia, where the air traffic controllers were spotting the object even on their radar. And while some are still having a hard time taking the UFO issue seriously, the Chinese military is taking it very seriously, because in 2021, they announced that they were beginning to implement AI in their identification systems because the UFO sightings began to rapidly increase. We could really do this all day. France in 2007 released their official government UFO files for the first time. The Australian government has released their classified reports on the Woomera sighting, which took place at a nuclear weapons testing range in the 60s. The UK released the files from their Ministry of Defense's UFO desk in June of 2013. In 2017, the Chilean government released a 10-minute video of one of their most high-profile UFO encounters. This stuff has been happening everywhere. It has been publicized everywhere, and people don't pay attention because we don't consume the information and news that's happening across the world. So yes, governments across the planet, on almost every continent, have had UFO sightings, are still having UFO sightings, have studied UFOs, have implemented processes and procedures in order to deal with UFOs. So the question becomes now for us here in the US today, why is this issue reaching a fever pitch in this moment? And I think I might have an answer to that question. Go ahead and smash that like button, hit that follow for the answer.